Hello everyone, first news update for 4th of April. Now it's 1 o'clock, middle of the day by Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some major developments, and hopefully you will find the update informative and useful. Before I start, let me just inform you that 6 o'clock this evening Moscow time I will launch a live stream community chat, and I hope you will manage to join their conversation. It's always good fun and good opportunity to exchange opinions in real time. I will let you know about live stream some 10-15 minutes before it starts. I will post about it on a community page on YouTube and also on my Telegram and Twitter pages. That's been said, let's go through some news. And first of all, this report from RIA Novosti that during the night, earlier so this morning, Russian air defense systems on duty intercepted 107 drones that were launched by Kyiv regime to strike deep into Russian territory. We have some details here. So 34 drones were intercepted over the Kursk region, 30 drones over the Oryol region, 18 drones over the Lipetsk region, 7 drones over the Kaluga, over the Rostov region and Azov Sea, where 4 drones were intercepted on each direction. Also 3 drones each over the Moscow and Tambov regions, 2 drones over the Bryansk region, and 1 drone each over the Voronezh and Tula regions. Relatively large-scale attempt of Kyiv regime and its NATO backers to strike deep into Russia. At this point, we don't have detailed information about casualties on the ground or more or less significant damage. If any update on that, of course, I will share additional information on my Telegram and Twitter X and during the live stream this evening. But yes, unfortunately, strike itself was quite a large scale, and obviously NATO member states were involved in this attack, as they always are, because Kyiv regime on its own has no means to organize flight path and to have targeting data. This information is received by this Western-backed terrorist regime from US, UK and France mainly. And they are using, by the way, US GPS and military applications of US GPS navigation system and the European Galileo navigation system. While Russia, during its attacks, long-range attacks that are also happening on regular basis, uses military application of Russian navigational system, GLONASS or some others, which once again confirms direct involvement of the NATO countries in this conflict. This is not really proxy war in classical understanding. This is direct war between Russia and NATO, actually, because NATO is involved so much in these strikes on Russia. We can call it a proxy war as long as we want, but this is actually direct war between the sides. Only just because NATO troops in mass are not yet presented on the battlefield don't mean that this is not a direct confrontation. They might end up on the battlefield in relatively short time. There are at least such threats from London and Paris, isn't it? That they're gonna send their troops and do this and that. Okay, send it, and you will find out. Yesterday night, or earlier so this morning, Russian armed forces were also conducting long-range strikes on Kyiv-controlled territory on military and logistical infrastructure. And explosions were reported in Zaporozhye, Dnipropetrovsk, Kiev, and many other directions. Although, once again, we don't have precise information about effectiveness of these strikes. There are very little detail, just information that there were strikes in these directions. Meanwhile, TASS news agency is reporting that according to Defense Ministry of Russia, during the previous 24 hours, Kyiv regime violated so-called energy ceasefire 6 times. They were targeting energy infrastructure in Bryansk, Tambov and Lipetsk regions. And of course, none of us are surprised because Kyiv regime is violating this energy ceasefire on a regular basis, on literally daily basis. And Washington, that was initiator of this energy ceasefire, is completely ignoring these violations of the agreement by Kyiv regime. For whatever reasons, by the way, I don't know what is the calculus of Washington, why they are not saying nothing about it, but they are quite Anyways, TASS news agency is reporting that Russian Defense Ministry confirmed liberation of Veseloye and Lobkovoe settlements by Russian forces. I reported in previous updates about progress of the Russian militaries in this direction, and now it is official that these settlements are being liberated. Still, Western propaganda, Western so-called public figures or politicians, even so-called military experts, by the way, will continue to push narrative that it is a stalemate. Nothing is happening, it's stalemate. While we are literally on daily basis receiving information about liberation of settlements here and there and all along the front line, basically, right? Literally every single day we are receiving updates on the progress of the Russian armed forces on line of contact, but Western propaganda still is focused on this false narrative that it is a stalemate. Okay. Anyways, meanwhile, we have this report that Trump once again spoke about Ukrainian crisis, and he said, based on I don't know what, that Putin and Zelensky are ready to make a deal. It is becoming extremely difficult really to understand what the hell Trump is talking about, especially lately, right? Sometimes I think he's just made up some stuff, and then his administration is trying to justify his statements somehow, and probably this is exactly that case. The leaders of Russia and Ukraine are ready to make a peace deal. U.S. President Donald Trump claimed on Thursday he has been trying to broker a ceasefire between the two neighbors since the February. Once again, this false narrative that U.S. is trying to broker some ceasefire. U.S. is a party, by the way. U.S. is a party of this conflict, right? As Kiev regime is, as United Kingdom, France, Germany, and others are, right? They are all parties of this conflict. And if we are talking about ceasefire, they should be talking about ceasefire between Russia and NATO member states and their proxy in the Kiev regime. It's not about, and it was never about ceasefire between Moscow and Kiev regime, because it's not just Kiev regime. And never was just Kiev regime, right? So therefore, I find it a bit frustrating when even Russian media outlets are not paying attention to this wording, because words have meaning, right? And when RT is writing, for example, that Trump was trying to broker ceasefire between the two neighbors, I mean, this is a mistake. Trump represents country that also involved in this conflict. And if we are talking about ceasefire, then talk should be about ceasefire between Russia and NATO and their proxy. Anyways, by the way, I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding something, but in my personal opinion, US is a part of this conflict and cannot be considered as a mediator. It's just it is what it is. Anyways. Reporter asked Trump on Air Force One about his communication with Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky, and then Trump stated that we have quote here, I think he is ready to make a deal. I think that Russian President Putin is ready to make a deal, Trump said. He declined to go into specifics, but added that the US is having a lot of good conversations about Ukraine and Russia. Okay, whatever that means. This is all nonsense, dear friends, of course, because first of all, as I already said, it is not about ceasefire between Russia and the Kiev regime. It's about ceasefire between and truce or peace agreement between Russia and NATO member states, US included, right? So therefore, we should not be mistaken by these attempts of their propaganda outlets, including Russian ones, to paint US as a sort of mediator. It was never the case, right? Secondly, Russian leadership did not change its mind. As far as I understand, Russia is not considering Zelensky as a legit president, and therefore Putin cannot sign up for anything while Zelensky is in power there, right? While Zelensky, this illegitimate war criminal, is formally represents Kiev regime. There can be no deal while this is the case. And all the talks are just that, just talks, because it will not go anywhere, right? So first, if Trump's administration, if we are if we conducting thought experiment, if Trump's administration really wants to de-escalate with Moscow and get out of this conflict, then first of all, they have to stop supply of weapons and munition and sharing intelligence. That should be first step. And secondly, they should use whatever influence they have still in Kiev-controlled territory to replace Zelensky with someone with whom Russia will talk, because that someone should have at least some sort of legitimacy, right? Until that is done, there is no point really to talk about peace, because there will be no peace. There cannot be peace in the current situation. Anyways, RIA Novosti is reporting that, well, Politico, based on its sources, saying that Putin and Trump might have a phone call either this week or early next week. Political sources are from Europe, so therefore we should take this information with a pinch of salt, because, I mean, why should anybody in Europe knew what kind of plans Trump and Putin had, right? I mean, what the hell? This is wrong on so many levels, right? And therefore, we should take this information with pinch of salt. But at the same time, we have also this report that from NBC News, and that is writing about it, that Trump's inner circle is opposing new Putin call. So US President Donald Trump's advisors are urging him to not call his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, before Moscow commits to full ceasefire in the Ukraine conflict. NBC News reported on Thursday, citing two anonymous officials. Trump, who is trying to mediate again, man. What the hell is going on in RT, by the way? Trump, who is trying to mediate a truce between Moscow and Kiev after more than 3 years of hostilities, previously told the media outlets that he intends to talk with Putin again, potentially as soon as this week. I don't know, man. I'm too disappointed with RT, especially lately, because what the hell they're talking about? I mean, Trump is mediating something. Trump is a problem. Trump is an enemy, right? Let's be real here. He's not a freaking mediator. He is an enemy of Russia. And because of the Trump and because of the weapons deliveries under the Trump's presidency, second one, who knows how many Russian citizens were killed because of the weapons that were delivered under the Trump from US to Kiev regime, this Western-backed terrorist regime. And also munition, and also intelligence. And RT dares to call him a mediator? What the hell, man? So disappointing, man. So disappointing. But if information is correct that NBC is reporting about, that Trump's inner circle is against this call, that's good, man. But I think that's a good stuff, because yet again, I think US leadership is not ready to acknowledge objective reality. Western ruling class in general is not yet ready to acknowledge objective reality and admit that they lost this proxy war against Russia. So therefore, there is no chance currently that they will listen to Moscow's position, they will understand Moscow's concerns, and therefore it does make no sense to spend any time really to have a conversation with these morons that represent collective West right now. It's just a waste of time. And I hope Trump will not call Russian president, because I think Putin has so much stuff to do, right? And to spend 30 minutes or hour or even more talking to that someone that has no idea what the hell is going on is just a waste of time. That's it, man. It's just waste of time. And just look at the new information itself, that this inner circle of Trump is against this phone conversation until Russia will sign up for this full ceasefire. What that even means? What ceasefire? they are not listening to Russia, right? Because Russian leadership was very clear that temporary measures are not acceptable. Because obviously, any such a temporary ceasefire will be used by Russian enemies to reorganize, rearm, reinforce their proxy regime in Kiev, and then to reignite next phase of confrontation. So it does not make no sense for Russian side, right? But Washington insists on unconditional ceasefire, which means that they are not ready to face the reality. So when situation changes, when Western ruling class or Trump's administration or the forces that are behind this administration will come to the terms that yes, Russia won, and they have to listen to us and take in account our concerns and our positions. Okay, then meeting, talks, phone conversation between the presidents, or the meeting, face-to-face meeting between the presidents, definitely makes sense. But now, no, it's just total waste of time. So therefore, I hope there will be no phone call, by the way. It's nonsense. As it was a waste of time, by the way, and taxpayers' money, when special envoy of Russian president went to Washington and spent the last couple of days while having meetings with different people, and you're going to be surprised to hear with whom the head of Russia's direct investment fund, Dmitriev, had the meetings. You're going to be surprised by it. The Russian president's special representative for investments and economic cooperation with foreign countries, the head of the Russian direct investment fund, Kirill Dmitriev, met with the Republican senators on April 3rd, NBC News reports, citing three American officials. According to TV channel sources, the two men in question are Lindsey Graham, senator from South Carolina, and Markwayne Mullin, senator from Oklahoma. The meeting was held at the request of the US President Donald Trump, and the conditions for the setting the conflict in Ukraine and the Russian leader Vladimir Putin's demands for a ceasefire were discussed, the sources said. So my money was spent to organize this trip of Dmitriev to US so that he will have a meeting with this disgrace of humanity, Lindsey Graham, who is extreme Russophobe, by the way, we all know that, and a Russia hater. I mean, this is embarrassing. To me personally, this is embarrassing. Dmitriev should never ever had spend even a second while talking to this garbage, Lindsey Graham. I don't know this other one, Markwayne Mullin. I just don't know him. Maybe he's a similar type of crazy as Lindsey Graham. But we know what kind of moron Lindsey is, isn't it? So, I mean, you tell me, dear friends, what is going on, because I don't know. I don't understand. You know? Why taxpayers' money being spent to organize this freaking visit? So that this special envoy of Russian president will have a meeting with whom? Lindsey Graham? Last time I checked, when Witkov was here in Moscow, Russian president met him, right? But I did not see any news that Trump met with the representative Russian president, which once again highlights how wrong the attitude of US administration is towards Russia, how disrespectful. And I take this information as an insult, by the way. This is wrong on so many levels, by the way, you know. It's crazy. It's just crazy. And I mean, Dmitriev went to make some statements. I mean, he's a acting diplomat, right? He has his mission, his orders, and he's following that. I can understand that, but still, it was just a waste of time and waste of resources. Why, for God's sake? So Dmitriev stated that US ready to fill niches left in Russia by the EU businesses. He is more about business. That's also true. He's not really about politics or geopolitics. He is about business, and he was focused most likely on some economical potential cooperation between two countries, between the companies of US and Russia. But still, this visit should never happen, because it's still waste of time. They might talk about anything, in Washington, about Andromeda Galaxy if they want to, but results gonna be zero from these talks, right? United States is ready to fill the niches left in Russia by European companies, said the head of the Russian Direct Investment Fund, Kirill Dmitriev, after visiting to Washington. American companies are ready to take over their industries that were abandoned by European companies that left the Russian market, Dmitriev said. He noted that Moscow and Washington are studying the possibility of restoring direct air traffic between the two countries. The head of the fund also explained that he met with key members of the US administration in the American capital. Yes, Lindsey Graham, key member, of course. And during their meeting, they discussed the restoration of the dialogue between the two countries. According to him, the administration of US President Donald Trump hears Russian position. They don't hear nothing. They don't hear nothing, by the way. And because Trump did not met personally with a representative of Russia, that in itself is a demonstration of the attitude of the White House, disrespectful attitude of White House towards Russia. And that's why I'm saying no talks with those morons, by the way. No wasting taxpayers' money and no wasting of time on that. This all does not make no sense. They are not ready to respect us. They don't know what respect is. Let's start from there. They don't respect anybody, probably, right? They are not ready to acknowledge objective reality, to face the reality, and therefore they are unnegotiable. And any talks with these morons that are in charge of their collective West countries is just complete waste of time. It's just, we don't have to be genius to understand this. And I'm disappointed that for whatever reason, Kremlin is engaged in these nonsensical games with Washington. It's bad, man. It's just bad. There should be some backdoor communication between defense ministries of two countries and security services of two countries, just to make sure that somehow we will not end up in a full-scale nuclear exchange. But other than that, as long as the US leadership is not ready to acknowledge reality and change its attitude and be respectful and truthful, there is no point to have any talks with them on any other level. Let just their militaries and security experts have communication to, if necessary, avoid, if it comes to it, to avoid direct war between countries, full-scale war and nuclear exchange. That's the only reason why should anybody from Russia have any conversation with American representatives. That's it. Other than that, just let's stay away from these morons, man. That's it. RT is reporting that US is about to skip Ukraine military aid meeting for the first time. If that even means anything, US is sending weapons. This is also going to be some big topic, that Hexet not going to participate in this Rammstein group's meeting. Okay, and what? And what? The US still sends weapons, US still sends munition, US still kills Russian citizens. So who does give a damn about Hexet's presence in that meeting? What difference does it make? None, right? US Defense Secretary Peter Hexet will skip the next meeting of the countries coordinating military support for Ukraine, the first such absence by Pentagon chief defense. News has reported, citing US and European officials. The Ukraine Defense Contact Group, or UDCG, also known as Ramstein Group, is set to convene in Brussels on April 11th for 27th time since the escalation of their conflict in 22. By the way, these morons, these criminals, get together 27 times to discuss how many weapons they're gonna send and what else they're gonna do to kill more Russians. And someone will dare to say that NATO is not involved in this war directly. Anyways, okay. Maybe Pat Hexed will skip that meeting, if that even means anything. It means nothing, right? US is still involved directly in this war against Russia and should be treated as a hostile and enemy, because it is. Russia and India navies test their firepower. Russian and Indian warships have completed joint exercises in the Bay of Bengal as a part of India 2025 naval drills. The Russian Defense Ministry said on Friday the 3-day operation included the live fire artillery practice against the both sea and aerial targets. And well, great, by the way, great. I applaud any cooperation between Russia and India. I see India as a number one strategical partner for Russia. I don't see China as number one strategical partner. I see India as a number one strategical partner, and for reasons, we just can take a look at the map, and it will become clear why I think so. Nothing to be said about historically traditional brotherly relationships between Russian and Indian people. So therefore, anything positive in the relationships of the two countries are great, including military cooperation, which is on a high level. Commerçant newspaper is also reporting that Macron urges European companies to stop investing in the US. Okay, European companies gonna move their manufacturing plants into US. They're not gonna stop investing nothing. If they want to survive, that's the price of their crazy policies of European bureaucracy. They make their own economies unsustainable for business, especially due to high cost of energy. And businesses don't really have much choice. I mean, if they want to survive, they have to move their manufacturing plants into US, and they will. And process is already underway. Recently, I read an article that some 30,000 companies already either moved their assets into US or have plans to do so, which is a quite huge number, isn't it? WTO chief warns of tariff war risks after US imposes tariffs. This war has already begun, by the way. Warning is just too late. World Trade Organization chief Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala has warned of the risk of a tariff war following the introduction of the new US duties. Once again, I mean, this war has already started, so it is too late to warn anybody. Meanwhile, we have first results, one may argue, of this new policy of US on tariffs. And for example, S&P 500 had its biggest slump in 5 years, and $2.5 trillion were wiped out basically from stocks, which is quite a number, really, 2.5 trillion. But yet again, I was saying since forever that US stock markets are inflated immensely. US companies are inflated. Their stock prices are inflated immensely. I mean, it does not make sense when Nvidia, a company that's extremely dependent on other countries, not on US, but other countries, worth $4 trillion or something. It was nonsensical stuff. It never made no sense to me. And same goes for iPhone, same goes for all these IT companies. And therefore, I'm not at all surprised that something happens and they are losing hundreds of billions in value. They should never be priced as a multi-trillion-dollar companies. But yet again, when US is printing trillions and trillions without any stop, and when this amount of money eventually will accumulate in the hands of this 1%, what they're gonna do with this money? They are putting this money in stocks, right? Not all of it, but part of it, and that creates this bubble, that inflates prices of companies, prices of these papers, and then when something happens, these bubbles burst, and we are seeing such situations when trillions and trillions were just wiped out in a couple of hours. Okay, and I read this morning one news that said top 500 billionaires just in previous 24 hours since the announcement by Trump of those tariffs lost over 200 billion or something, which is also quite a lot of money. But yet again, these stock markets in US or in the collective West in general, they're not gonna correct themselves, right? They're gonna be inflated, and therefore give it a month or 2 months time, and they will regain losses because money flow cannot stop. US is printing plenty of money, European Central Bank prints plenty of money, and eventually all this money accumulates in the hands of this 1%. And they're not gonna sit on this money, isn't it? They're gonna use it some way, and one of the ways is to invest in stocks, and that investments further inflates prices there, and further enlarges this bubble that one day gonna burst really. I mean, really, and it's gonna be a crash that US has never seen before, as Trump loves to say, something that have never been seen before. So yes, that's what's gonna happen with the US stock market. I'm not a financial expert or economical expert, but it's just too obvious, isn't it? This is all freaking fake stuff. That company that has nothing, like Nvidia, for example, they are producing freaking chips, right? And to produce these chips, they need rare earth materials. They need some stuff that comes from other countries, right? So they are extremely dependent on many factors. And why this is the case? How this company can work for 4 trillion or 3 trillion? It's nonsensical stuff, right? And Apple almost produces nothing in US, heavily dependent on other countries, China, India, some others. And how come that Apple worth several trillion? What the hell? It's crazy, man. So anyways, I don't really care about US stock markets. If I was US citizen, I will never invest in this fake stuff. RIA Novosti is reporting that media finds out when EU may impose duties on US imports. So the duties that European Union is going to impose on American goods is in response of import restrictions imposed by Donald Trump may come into force in May, writes the British newspaper Financial Times. So, okay, in May, EU might retaliate, although I'm a bit skeptical on that because I don't think EU is in a position to go toe-to-toe with US when it comes to these tariff wars, man. If EU imposes tariffs, then European companies gonna lose even more. European economy is gonna suffer even more. So therefore, they might talk a lot, but I don't think they're gonna go hard on US. They are just not in a position to do so. People are not realizing how weak EU really is, and Europe and European economies, how fragile. But they will realize soon, Only chance European states had for sustainable growth was if they were cooperating with Russia, but they blow that chance, isn't it? They choose hostilities instead of cooperation, and they're gonna pay price now for that. Not just now, but for decades and decades to come, because relationships between Russia and Europe never gonna be good, ever. Which is unfortunate, but yet again, this is not the path that we chose. This is path that European political class chose. And okay, what can we do about it? I mean, nothing. Anyways, dear friends, this is it for now. Relatively shorter update. Hopefully you will find it informative, interesting, and useful. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary. That might help to deal with the algorithm. And if you like my work, if you want to support her, you can do it through several means, with donations through PayPal or Boosty platforms, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. You can support through crypto also. All the links are on this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. Have a wonderful day and take care.